About a year ago, I uploaded a video called One Kid 20 Voices, in which I emulated 20 artists who used screaming vocals. Among them was a trap metal artist known as Scarlord. People started asking me for a tutorial on how to sound like him, so a few months later I made one. Not only are these two videos the most viewed videos on my channel, but also the most controversial. People began leaving comments on both videos saying that I didn't sound like Scarlord and that I was spreading misinformation. Many people argued that what Scarlord does is a natural scream, and that it took no real technique other than just screaming as loud as you could. I knew this wasn't true, and I didn't think much of it. But after a while, the more I listened to Scarlord and the more I read the comments, the more I realized that my explanation of his vocals was actually kind of wrong. So I went back to the drawing board, listening to Scarlord, listening to Myth City, his old band, watching videos of him practicing, analyzing his screams, researching different types of screaming vocals, studying human anatomy, practicing, calculating, practicing, researching, practicing. And then finally, it clicked. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, Isaiah Warlock here, back at it again with another tutorial. In this video, I'm going to be teaching you how to do Scarlord's classic, high-pitched, super powerful, loud, yell type of scream. Yeah! Break! I will also teach you how to do the low growls that he does. Terraform this place! And I will also teach you the sing screaming kind of thing that he's been doing in a lot of his newer music. Sing in silence! Sing in silence! We're going to be taking a look at some clips from some of his songs, as well as analyzing an old video of Scarlord when he was first learning to scream. So make sure you stick around and watch the entire video because I have so much information to share with you guys. That being said, before we jump into it, make sure you subscribe. It's free. You can unsubscribe whenever you want to, so you might as well, and it helps me out a lot. Also, a huge percentage of the people that watch my videos aren't actually subscribed. So if you do enjoy this video, just don't forget to hit that subscribe button. So the first thing that we will discuss is the classic Scarlord scream. Break! Die! What you have to understand about this sound is that it's made of two completely different parts. There's the voice and there's the distortion. And in order to do this kind of scream, you have to understand and be able to do both the voice and the distortion by themselves to be able to combine them like this. What makes Scarlord unique is that he uses so much voice in his screams, way more than almost all other screaming vocalists. And that's why a lot of his screams sound almost just like a regular yell, kind of a high-pitched, belted yell. And that's basically what they are, but there is that distortion layer as well, which really makes it into a scream. Without the distortion, you're not really going to get the sound that you want. In this case, with these kinds of screams, the voice is, like I said, just a super high-pitched, belted note. And depending on the pitch, the distortion is usually fry, sometimes mixed with glottal compression or soft tissue distortion. Now, if that sounds complicated, do not worry, I'm going to explain all of it. First, I will explain the voice, explain everything you need to know about it, how you can do it, the ways you can practice it, and then I will explain the distortion, what I meant by the different kinds of distortion, how to get them in your voice, and how to use them in screams like this. So when it comes to the voice, it is absolutely crucial that you are able to belt notes up at this range. It's absolutely crucial for this kind of scream. And you might hear me talking about notes and belting and that kind of thing, and you might think, well, isn't that singing? What does that have to do with screaming? Because you might think that what Scarlord does isn't really a technical thing, isn't really a thought out thing, but it is. what he does is super impressive. The notes that he's hitting, and yes, he is hitting notes. When he screams, because he has so much voice, he is actually hitting notes like you would when singing. But he does have that distortion layer on there, and the focus isn't the pitch. In most cases, which we'll talk about this a bit later when we talk about sing screaming, but in most cases with this, the pitch doesn't really matter. All that matters is that it's way up there and really loud so that the scream really gets projected. And his screams are really way up there. I mean, take a look at any Scarlord song, especially his newer stuff, because he keeps going higher and higher. And listen to the pitch of where he's actually screaming. Those notes are super high, and most people, if you're not already a vocalist, a screamer, a singer, you're not going to be able to get there. But that doesn't mean you can't ever get there, but that means it's going to take some practice. Now, what I need to explain is that when you're doing this, you have to stay in your chest voice. If you don't know what that means, I'll explain really quickly. The human voice has several different registers. You have your chest voice, which is what I'm using right now to talk. You have your head voice, which sounds like this. It sounds kind of like Mickey Mouse or something like that. That's all head voice. This is all talking in my head voice. And then you also have falsetto, which is even higher, and it's really breathy. And then you also have mixed, which is like a mix between head and chest, and it sounds like this. Now, for these screams, you need to stay only in your chest voice. And the reason I'm saying that is because most people, if they're thinking, okay, I'm gonna go do this high note now, but you're gonna switch up to your head voice or your mixed voice. You're gonna go up there and you're gonna switch over. And so you need to make sure that you're not doing that. And you'll feel when you do that, because when you switch into another register, that happens. There's like a break, like your voice cracks. So make sure that's not happening. That's the number one thing. When you're trying to sing up in those notes, when you're trying to yell up in those notes, make sure your voice isn't cracking and becoming really airy, so you know you're not going up into head voice and falsetto. You need to stay in chest voice. Your chest voice is always going to be the one that's the loudest, biggest. This is all chest voice. And the higher you go, the louder you're going to have to get to stay in chest voice. So be aware of that. Yeah. So these are the notes that we're trying to get to. Sounds silly, but it's in that range. You want to be in that range with your chest voice to put the distortion on it. And the last thing I'll say before I start explaining the distortion is that I would highly suggest that if you want to do this, start singing, and always be trying to sing stuff that's a little bit out of your range. And then once you get there, sing something else that's a little bit out of your range. And this is going to make your voice climb up to get you to the point where you can sing those super high notes. So what is that distortion? As I said, the distortion that Scarlord uses is mainly fry, sometimes going into more of a blend with soft tissue distortion or glottal compression. And now this was probably the most controversial point when I talked about this in my first Scarlord tutorial. And I did make a lot of mistakes in that tutorial that I'm going to be rectifying, hopefully in this video. But I did go through a phase where I was wondering, maybe it's not fry, maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's actually something else, maybe it is a natural scream. But after doing some research, it's fry. Especially in his sing screaming, you can really hear that fry coming through. When he's doing rapping stuff with screaming here and there, it does sound more like a yell, and the distortion is there, but not as much. But when he does sing screaming in songs like Sick of Silence and Save Your Grace, you can really hear that sharp, crackly fry coming in on his voice. And to show you conclusively that it is mostly fry, we can take a look at one of Scarlord's old videos when he was with Miss City. Supposedly this is when he was just learning to scream. So here is a video of him playing a song with Miss City, messing around, and him doing a scream. And supposedly this is one of the first Scarlord screams ever caught on camera, so check it out. Okay, did you hear that? So, here's what we can take away from that. When he screamed, it was pretty much pitchless. Obviously, it did have a little bit of pitch, but that is a characteristic of fry. It sounded like that. there's not a lot of force going in, there's not a lot of compression, and there is hardly any voice. And this is exactly what I'm saying. If Scarlord was using some other kind of distortion, or if he was doing just a natural scream, then he would not be able to do a pitchless scream like that, because a natural scream is just voice. Any other kind of distortion by itself without any voice wouldn't sound like that. Now you can tell that his fry scream has evolved a ton since that video, because now he, as I said, he adds tons of voice. And it's probably like 75% voice and 25% distortion, whereas that's like 90% distortion. But that's just a stylistic choice. We can see from this video that Scarlord did learn to do a fry scream and then developed it from there, figuring out what he liked stylistically. Now I've done a lot of videos explaining how to do a fry scream. Literally click on any of my videos and half of them will have a little explanation of a fry scream somewhere in the video for one reason or another. I will do another one here, but make sure to go check out my fry scream tutorial video after this video if you want to get more specific information, as well as like literally any of my other videos. But essentially, if you don't already know, this is how you start developing fry. Now, as I said, fry is a kind of distortion. It's like a white noise, it's a crackly sound. What it actually is little air bubbles coming through the tips of your vocal folds that makes a little crackly sound. And we build up that crackly sound to be bigger and louder. And this is how. So you start like this. And the analogy I always do is when you wake up in the morning and you're really sleepy and you start to talk like this. Right? When you're lazy. And there's lots of people that literally talk like that all the time. But literally it's just this. Yeah. So most people can do that. Now the problem most people have here is that when they go and try to push that to make it louder, they push past it into another kind of distortion, which usually like soft tissue distortion, so like this. Don't do that. That's what you don't want to do. Don't push it immediately. So you want to start here. Make sure you can move the fry up and down in pitch slightly. And just keep doing that, because that's going to give you control over the fry, get you used to making the sound. And then very gradually you can add air, add voice to make it bigger. And now I'm still doing these like kind of pitchless fry screams. There's a little bit of pitch, but not really. Okay, but what we're gonna do is put that sound over the voice, the belting that we were doing before. So how do we do that? You start with a belt like I showed you how to do earlier. Yeah! And you do it for a long time, and just remember how it feels to do the fry, and slowly you're gonna bring that feeling in, and it's gonna come over, and it's gonna become a layer over that belt. But remember, you have to be yelling at like the top of your lungs, at the top of your register, otherwise it's gonna be difficult to combine them. But if you are, it's literally difficult to not combine them. So start here. Yeah! And then start visualizing it and bringing in that feeling. Now it's super important that you have the right ratio, right? Because if you're mostly fry, yeah! That's not gonna sound like Scarlord. So you have to be mostly voice. Have that belt and bring the fry in, and just leave it at a place where you can hear the yell and you can hear the fry, and they're both there together in harmony. Yeah! Like somewhere around there, that's like the sweet spot. That is how you do Scarlord's classic scream. And I'm also real quickly just gonna tell you two other things that Scarlord does: the low growls he does and the sing screaming that he does. First, I'll show you the sing screaming because it's super related to what we're just doing. It's literally exactly the same thing. The only difference might be that you might want to use a little bit more voice than fry, because for this the pitch doesn't matter since it actually is singing. And like I was saying before, listen to Scarlord's, some of his newer songs like Save Your Grace, Sick of Silence. There's other ones as well where he's doing this sing screaming thing, and it sounds really cool. But you want to do basically the same thing that I've showed you for the regular scream, but you want to just change the pitch to fit the melody of the song. And this is another reason I was saying, I suggest that you practice singing and that you get into singing if you're not already, because even if you don't want to sing in your own music, that's going to help you, especially with this sing screaming thing. Pretty simple. It just goes along the lines of what I was already saying. Just change the pitch to the melody, and it should sound something like this. Pretend save your grace. Sick of silence. Sick of silence. And And now I will explain the growls that Scarlord is doing. Now, in the first Scarlord tutorial I did, I had no idea what I was talking about when I came to this, honestly. But now I'm going to give you the definitive guide to doing the Scarlord growls, and it's false chord. If you listen to it, it's just like, yeah. If you know what false chord sounds like, yeah, that's false chord. There's no question. So how do you do false chord? I'm going to tell you how to do false chord right now. But once again, if you want more information, I've done a whole tutorial, a whole video on explaining false chord. So link in the description to that one, as well as the fry streaming video, link in the description. Go check those out after this video. It'll help you a lot. But anyways, I'm going to do a quick explanation of false chord growling. Here we go. So basically, similar to fry, whereas fry is a distortion that you get from bubbling in your vocal cords, false chord is just another kind of distortion, another kind of white noise that you get from your false chords. And the way to kind of bring out this sound, there's a few ways, and I'll show you a few of them here. But if you've never done false chord before, basically a good way to start doing it is to cough or like clear your throat out, because when we do that in real life, we use false chord, we use our false chords, we don't really notice. So what I mean is, like, if you're clearing your throat, you hear that growly, distortion-y sound? That's the false chord. So once you have that sound, also by coughing, see that little bit of a growl there at the beginning? That's what we want. So there's a bunch of ways of trying to find the sound, also by going like this. Opening your mouth slowly. There's a bunch of ways. Try any of those ways. And I have way more tips on how to get the sound in my false chord video, so make sure you check that out. But anyways, once you have that sound, it's not going to sound like that straight away. It's going to sound a bit more like rumbly and not quite as sharp. But as you go, it'll sharpen. It'll become a nicer sound. You just have to practice it and build it up. Make sure you keep your mouth in like a this kind of position, so it sounds like a really low growl. Okay, guys, this is unfortunately the end of the video. So thank you a ton for watching this video. I really appreciate it. Once again, if you're not already subscribed, make sure you subscribe. It helps me out a ton. And also, please share this video on social media. Send it to anybody that you think wants to learn this or that is interested in this. It helps me out so much as well. If there are any other artists you want tutorials for, drop them in the comments. I've done a bunch already. I'm going to do a bunch more. I've got 2 lined up that I'm going to film like tomorrow. So make sure you subscribe so that you see those. With that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching. I'm Isaiah Warlock, and goodbye.